Have you ever woken up and wondered, is my job still safe? I've heard that question hundreds of times, from people in their 30s, 40s, even 50s, people who once believed that hard work and experience would protect them. But then one day, a new piece of software, a robot or an AI system shows up, and everything changes. We're living in an age where AI isn't just replacing jobs, it's redefining human value. Imagine this: a robot that never gets tired, never takes lunch breaks, never complains, and costs only 1/10 of a human salary. So what makes you valuable? I've worked in finance for over 20 years, and here's what I've learned. The people who keep their jobs aren't the best. They're the ones who adapt the fastest. I remember a friend of mine, a veteran stockbroker. He once told me, "I thought I knew everything until an algorithm started doing my job, faster, more accurate, and never making mistakes. But instead of fighting it, he learned how to use it. He stopped asking, 'What will AI take from me?' and started asking, 'How can AI help me do better?' That mindset saved his career. So when I talk about human value, I'm not talking about degrees or seniority. I'm talking about the things machines can't replicate: creativity, emotion, empathy, and connection. A robot can analyze 1,000,000 data points, but it can't look into your eyes and understand your pain. It can't feel fear or hope or the quiet love of a father worried about his family. And that human essence, will define success in the new era. Remember this: you don't need to run faster than the machines. You just need to run in a different direction. AI isn't taking your job. It's revealing who stopped learning, who stopped evolving, who stopped being curious. So next time you hear about mass layoffs because of AI, don't be afraid. Ask yourself instead, am I learning faster than the world is changing? Because in this era, nobody fails for being stupid. People fail for being slow to adapt. Sometimes I watch the news about Israel and Gaza, and I ask myself, why, after thousands of years of civilization, haven't we learned how to live together? Missiles fly, retaliation follows, and the world talks about peace again. But peace, just like the stock market, doesn't come from promises. It comes from shared interests. Years ago, I worked with investors in the Middle East. One of them told me something I'll never forget. Money can bring two enemies to the same table, something politics and religion never could. And he was right. The conflict between Israel and Gaza isn't just about land. It's a clash of beliefs, fears, and interests. One side fears extinction. The other fears being forgotten. Both are losing something. And in between are millions of ordinary people. Not heroes, just humans trying to survive. I don't take sides. I just see that economics is the only universal language humanity truly understands. You may hate each other, but if you trade, you must trust. If you build together, you must protect each other. That's what the Abraham Accords, peace agreements built on economic cooperation, are trying to do. Turn hatred into transactions and conflict into shared profit. It sounds cold, but sometimes pragmatism is the fastest road to peace. Think of the world like a portfolio. We have risky assets, pride, dogma, prejudice, and stable assets, trust, trade, and shared prosperity. If your portfolio is all risk, it will collapse. But if you rebalance, if you invest in trust, the world can recover. A friend in Tel Aviv once told me, "Every time the sirens go off, I think, if we spent half the money we spend on bombs on Palestinian education and jobs, we wouldn't need to hide in bunkers." And he was right. In finance, we say cash flow is king, But in humanity, I believe peace flow is life. When money and trust move together, people find reasons to live, not just to survive. Peace doesn't come from speeches. It begins when one person dares to lay the first brick to build a bridge. And in our own lives, peace doesn't come when others apologize. It comes when we're strong enough to forgive, wise enough to remember that every war, inside or out, begins the moment we forget how similar we truly are. There's something about America few people notice. We don't fear crises, we fear losing control. And that's exactly how millions of Americans feel right now. As the government shuts down, SNAP benefits run dry, and everything seems stuck between two words: waiting and uncertain. I remember 2008 when Wall Street crashed. I was still a young financial advisor then. Every morning, I got dozens of calls, not from big investors, but from regular people, cab drivers, nurses, teachers, all asking the same question: am I going to lose everything? And today, I see that same fear in people's eyes again. A government shutdown isn't a disaster, it's a test of financial patience and discipline. Because when the system stops flowing, you find out who prepared and who just went with the flow. When the paycheck stops, when the SNAP card no longer works, when the check doesn't arrive, we suddenly look at our lives differently. We realize we don't need much to live. We just need enough to be at peace. That's real financial freedom. Not earning more, but needing less. A friend of mine, a federal worker, was furloughed during the 2019 shutdown. He told me, "I thought I was stable, until I realized that just 3 weeks without pay could bring everything down." So he changed. He stopped emotional spending, stopped chasing sales, stopped buying new cars to feel successful. He built an emergency fund, started small investments, and here's the beautiful part. He felt freer than ever, even though his income stayed the same. Imagine this. If tomorrow the government couldn't send out any checks, would you still be okay? If not, then don't fear the government, fear your financial habits. A great economy, like a person, doesn't collapse from lack of money. It collapses from overspending, overborrowing, and forgetting to prepare for risk. We used to trust the system. Now it's time to trust personal discipline. Start small. Spend 15 minutes a week reviewing your expenses. Keep a cash reserve to survive at least 3 minimalist months. And above all, don't let emotions control your wallet. The government may shut down, the markets may fall, but if you have discipline, you'll never shut down on yourself. Now imagine this. It's a quiet night. You step outside and look up at the sky. Somewhere out there, millions of miles away, an object is racing through space. They call it 3I Atlas, a chunk of ice, metal, or maybe something beyond human understanding. Some say it's just a meteor. Others whisper it might be an intelligent craft from another civilization. But as someone who spent a lifetime surrounded by numbers and charts, I'm not fascinated by what it is. I'm fascinated by why we want it to mean something. Because no matter how advanced we get, how rich, how digital, there's still a small part of every human soul that keeps looking up, searching for meaning. We can't stand the thought that we're just dust. We want to believe there's something greater, wiser, maybe even watching us back. I've spoken with so many people in their 40s and 50s, people who've been through divorce, job loss, heartbreak, and they all tell me the same thing. I'm not afraid of losing money. I'm afraid of living without meaning. Maybe that's why we're drawn to 3I Atlas. Not because it's alien, but because it mirrors our longing to rediscover purpose. I've seen the same thing in investing. When markets go wild, people don't look for data, they look for faith. They want to believe there's order in the chaos. That's why, even in the age of AI and space travel, we still need emotion, connection, and belief. A Yale psychology study found that during times of uncertainty, war, recession, unemployment, people instinctively turn toward something bigger than themselves: religion, philosophy, mystery. Not because they're naive, but because meaning is the painkiller of the soul. Maybe 3i Atlas is just a symbol of that. It makes us look up instead of down at our screens. It reminds us that the universe is vast, while our daily worries, bills, deadlines, paychecks are small. And maybe, just maybe, when we dare to look up, we rediscover ourselves. Fragile, small, but still capable of dreaming, of asking questions, and of believing that life, after all, still holds a little magic. I want to talk about something that a lot of Americans feel, but very few are willing to admit. We're living in an illusion of safety. I see it every day, in offices, on the streets, in the calls I get from clients. They tell me my job is stable, and then, a few weeks later, an email arrives from HR. Thank you for your contributions. One click, and that so-called stability disappears. The American job market is changing in ways most people don't yet understand. Not because the economy is weak, but because the very definition of productivity has changed. Amazon, Walmart, Target, companies once seen as symbols of steady employment, are now using the same phrase: AI optimization. It sounds progressive, but what it really means is, we're learning to do more with fewer people. I once met a woman named Linda, 47 years old, who had worked in a warehouse for over 20 years. She told me, "I never thought a robot could do my job, but now they scan the barcodes, stack the shelves, even call the trucks. I still go to work, but I feel like I'm slowly being replaced." Linda wasn't lazy, and she wasn't incompetent. She just believed that hard work was enough. But this era doesn't reward hard work. It rewards adaptability. Look around, and you'll see two kinds of people: those waiting for the world to stop changing, and those changing with it. The first group complains that AI is taking jobs, while the second group learns how to use AI to create better ones. I'm not saying everyone needs to become a coder or a tech expert. What I'm saying is this: not learning is the most expensive decision you can make today. Because the moment you stop learning, you start becoming invisible. A study from MIT found that just 30 minutes a day of learning a new skill can increase your job security by over 60% in the next 5 years. 30 minutes. Less than what most of us spend scrolling social media every night. I know, learning again in your 40s isn't easy. You're tired, you're busy, you think it's too late. But remember, every major leap starts with one small step: a free online course, a short skill video, one attempt to use AI to make your work faster. Those are the tiny seeds of career freedom. Don't wait for your company to train you. Don't wait for the world to slow down. Be the one who rewrites your own role before someone else writes it for you. Because in this era, you don't get fired for being worthless. You get replaced when your value is no longer visible. And the only thing that keeps you from being replaced isn't your title or your degree. It's your never-ending hunger to learn. You know, there are places in the world right now fighting for something America sometimes forgets: discipline and faith. I'm talking about Brazil. where the government just launched a massive campaign to take on the drug cartels. Gunfights, burning cars, drones dropping bombs. It sounds like Hollywood, but it's real life. A friend of mine who works in finance in São Paulo once said something that stuck with me. If a country can't control crime, it can't control its financial future. He's right. Because law and trust are the two strongest currencies any nation has. Once you lose them, money, stocks, and real estate become nothing but numbers on a screen. And if you think that only happens in Brazil, think again. In personal finance, we all have our own invisible gangs: debt, overspending, temptation, and lack of discipline. They attack you every day, not with guns, but with emotions. A flashy ad, a sale you don't need, a new car with easy payments. And just like that, you get kidnapped from your own financial freedom. I once had a client, Joe, 42, from Florida. He earned about $120,000 a year, yet he constantly felt broke. One day he told me, exhausted, "I work like crazy, but I don't know where it all goes." When I looked at his spending, I understood. He wasn't buying because he needed things. He was buying because he feared falling behind. Every time his friends got something new, he felt he had to keep up. He wasn't addicted to drugs. He was addicted to approval. And I told him, "Joe, discipline is the only path back to freedom. Because whether it's a country or a person, without discipline, there is no freedom." It sounds like a paradox, but it's the truth. Boundaries create peace. Structure creates space to grow. A nation fighting cartels, or a person fighting debt, it's the same battle, a fight to take back control. You can't be free if you're controlled by spending habits, emotions, or fear of missing out. When I see Brazil cleaning out its criminal system despite the pain, I see a reflection of each of us, trying to clean out the toxic parts of our own financial lives. Cut the poison. Keep what's real. Let me tell you another story. One autumn afternoon in London, in broad daylight, a man was stabbed to death in the street. The killer was an immigrant. The news spread so fast that even Elon Musk tweeted, "Civil war in the UK is inevitable." It sounds distant, but to me, it's a mirror of the world and of America. Because when trust in the system fades, when inequality widens, and when people feel unheard, anger always finds a voice. After decades in finance, what worries me most isn't a market crash or a recession. It's emotional imbalance in society. When ordinary people feel left behind, dismissed, or robbed of their future, they don't need logic. They need someone to blame. And that's when civilizations start to crack. Britain could easily be any country, including ours. We may not stab each other in the streets, but we're stabbing each other with words, on social media, in politics, in the way we look at one another. Black or white, rich or poor, urban or rural. Every small difference has become a battlefield. I once asked a sociologist friend in Chicago, "Why is it that when times get hard, people divide instead of unite?" He said, "Because when the wallet's empty, trust becomes cheap." And he's right. No one can think big when they're scared they won't make it to the end of the month. No one can be kind when they feel threatened. Inequality doesn't just kill economies, it kills empathy. So what's the solution? Not more slogans, not more politics, but investing in people again. In education, in financial literacy, in life skills, in mutual understanding. I've seen small businesses and local communities do this, teaching people to manage debt, plan their finances, and build new skills. And you know what happens? Crime drops, conflict drops, trust begins to return. Economics isn't just about money. It's the language of connection, the way people find common ground in a divided world. Sometimes I think we forget that every crisis has a cycle, and every cycle carries a lesson. When I look back at the past few years, war, inflation, AI, layoffs, politics, the erosion of trust, doesn't it feel like the world is resetting? To me it does, and maybe that's not a bad thing. In all this chaos, the world is teaching us to return to the oldest human question: what truly has value? I've worked with wealthy people, power, money, status, but when they lose their jobs or their portfolios collapse, only two things remain: mindset and skill. You can lose money, but if you have resilience and real ability, you can rebuild. But if you only have money without strength, one gust of wind can take it all away. We're living in a time when calmness itself has become an asset. When everyone else panics, the calmest person wins. As Warren Buffett once said, "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful." But I'd add one more. Understand yourself before you try to understand the market, because the market is just a mirror, reflecting our own fear and greed. At a finance conference in New York, a man once asked me, "What's the safest investment for the next decade?" I smiled and said, "Not gold, not stocks, adaptability." Because no matter how technology changes, how interest rates rise or fall, how the world spins, those who adapt will never be poor. Adaptation doesn't mean abandoning your principles. It means learning to adjust your sails instead of fighting the wind. I know many of you are tired. The news is full of fear, wars, debt, inflation, AI taking jobs. But none of that is the end. It's just a transition. And in every transition, there are always two kinds of people: those who see danger and those who see opportunity.